Alright, so yeah, my eyes were like burning. They were just absolutely burning. I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't really feel that they were hot, but I knew that something was wrong with them, so I was like, put ice on them. And like I said, it shot through the window, so there was shattered glass everywhere, and a lot of it had blood all over it, so it felt cold and slippery like ice. So I was crawling around on my hands and knees trying to find stuff. I found a pile of shattered glass, and I thought, ice. It's cold, it's ice. I can put it in my eyes and cool them down. So I pick up a handful of ice and shove it into my eyes and start rubbing it and stuff like that. But it wasn't ice at all, it was shattered glass. So I'm rubbing shattered glass into my eyes and eye socket and stuff like that. And so I was like, as soon as I did that, it felt better. But then my eyes felt ice cold because that's when they started losing all the fluid. So they couldn't hold fluid, so they couldn't hold heat. So they just felt completely ice cold. Imagine if someone got dry ice or something like that and just put it on your eyes and just held it on there. And you couldn't get it off. But it just kept on getting colder and colder. And so that's what I was feeling. And now I'm like trying to warm my eyes up by going like that. And then I'm constantly passing out and coming back into consciousness. And, just like passing out on the floor and then waking back up. And then this part in the story, it typically gets people to tear up. Well, most of the time people are already completely teared up by now. But so anyway, you know what a rain stick sounds like? Yeah. That's what it sounded like, but I was crawling around on the floor, complete panic mode, complete survival mode. I didn't know what was wrong. I knew something was wrong, like on a primal level. I knew what was wrong, but I didn't know what happened. And my tongue was completely split in half, so I couldn't really talk that well, so I was like screaming out, help, help, help me, please, somebody help me. But it was coming out like, help, 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 like that. And I was all muffled because there was blood in my mouth and stuff like that. And, this lip was right there, is split open down to about there. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so, your tongue?
Yeah, my tongue, right, like, just from there down to there, that eyelid was completely torn off. Mm-hmm. Well, not torn off, but, like, torn from up here down to there. Mm-hmm. And then the eye socket. Here, this is a good representation. So, left eye, right eye. It's supposed to be smooth inside. I'm not sure if you can see all that, but there's just bony.
Yeah, it was just fragmented all the way.
Protuberances. So that's what happened to my right eye, and as you can see, so
those are all holes from other BBs going through the skull.
But so as you can see, there's supposed to be bone like right in there, right? Mm-hmm. It's all blown out, so it was just popping out. It just popped out. There was nothing holding that eye in, nothing trying to hold that eye in, because this entire upper lid was just like, And so, I'm crawling around, and then, again, there's about 600 or so BBs, like, in my brain, kinda, like, in my head.
Well, and most people say, well, the shell only carries such and such number. Well, they had an old shell.
Mm-hmm. It was an old pheasant load. It had about
714 BBs in it.
And when I say old pheasant load, I mean old pheasant load, like from the 90s or so, because it didn't have corrosion on the shell casing, but you couldn't read any of the writing on it. It was completely faded, everything. There was a little bit of corrosion kind of starting to show, so they still worked just fine. Well, that's a testament to how well they still worked. But so we figured, let's just shoot all the old ones before we use up the new ones, new ones. And so, like I'm crawling around, I'm in complete primal survival mode. I only have one thought in my mind, and that's survive. No matter what, survive. I don't know what's happened, but I do know what's happened, And so then all of a sudden those BBs fall out, and we have a hardwood floor, and so they're falling out on there and bouncing around and stuff. It sounded like a rain stick. So like, imagine a rain stick and taking a thing of airsoft BBs and dumping them out on the floor and they're bouncing all over the place. That's what it sounded like if you were to mix those two. A rain stick and dumping a bunch, well, actually, just dumping a bunch of BBs out onto the floor would be the most accurate because that's exactly what it was. So, and then that calmed me down. Like that, because like in that moment, I was like, is that a rain stick? When did we get a rain stick? That's, it calmed me down because I was like, I always associate rain sticks with like calming, like, so I was like, that calmed me down kind of, but I was still screaming, help, somebody, please, please, somebody help me. And at that point, I passed back out, and then I had been crawling all over the house, so there was a blood trail everywhere, basically. And then that's about when I passed out, and Dakota and my Grampy, got back to the house, and they opened up the sliding glass door. At that point, Grampy still was like, not sure if, like, how bad it was. He thought maybe, like, I got shot in the arm maybe or something. He just didn't think it, like, thought it was bad, but not as bad as it was. And then he opens up the door and he sees all the blood and me. Well, he sees the blood trail and everything. And at that point, he's like, oh. And keep in mind, he was 72 when this happened. So he couldn't move me. So Dakota, he had to pick me up. But since I was completely limp, and since blood has the same consistency as motor oil, so it's insanely lubricant. It's like really slippery. Dakota said it was like trying to hold on to a big dead fish because I was completely limp, so I kept on just like, like he'd have me in between his arms, and then I'd basically just fold up and almost fall out, like in between his arms, or if he'd like do that to try to get me back up, I'd flop off, stuff like that. I find little parts like that kind of amusing just because it's like, it's a life and death struggle, not struggle, but life and death, but it's like trying to hold on to a dead fish. It's kind of like a cartoon. You like pick me up and I floop, and as soon as I get back up, it's down through the middle and then floop, just stuff like that. So I find humor in some parts. Some people think that's a little bit dark, but I do. It's just, I'm not as affected mentally by it. Like, I can tell the whole story without tearing up or anything. If it sounds like I'm starting to get, like, constricted, it's not because I'm telling the story and it's bringing up a lot of emotions. It's just because I'm talking and, I gotta take breaths and clear my throat out, so, and stuff like that. And, so anyway, Dakota finally gets me up, and he kind of, like, at this point, he kind of gave up on trying to hold me, so he just kind of puts his arms under mine and, like, and just, like, holds me like that and tries, and just, like, kind of half carries, half drags me. And so he was half carrying, half dragging me to the car, which at that point in time was a 1989 red Pontiac Bonneville. The back right door didn't open from the inside. Or did it open at all? I think it opened from the outside, but I'm not sure. Anyway, so Dakota puts me in the back seat, and he's sitting there with me, and he's like trying to hold me because I keep on like trying to jam my arm into my eyes like that to like warm them up. Because, like I said, they were ice cold. It felt like someone was holding ice on them. And so he's sitting in the back seat trying to comfort me, and also trying to like hold me down. And at this point, he'd kind of taken his shirt off and kind of like wrapped it up, trying to stop the bleeding a little bit, but it wasn't really doing anything. So at one point, he just dropped the shirt. Anyway, and so our driveway is about a mile long. It's a dirt road, and it's really bad. But my grandpa is trying to drive as fast as he can, safely, out the road, because we need to get to Dad. But we can't really go that fast, and so I'm screaming, and Dakota's like, it's okay, Jade, it's okay, don't cry, it's okay. But Grampy was like, no, let him cry, it's good, that way we know he's still alive, stuff like that, and keep him conscious, It's kind of like you're trying to stay awake. It's easier to stay awake if you're doing something than if you're just, Anyway, and so we finally get onto the highway, and we drive about 2 miles down the road to our dad's work site. He was hanging sheetrock at a B&B, and there's about 100-yard long dirt road that goes up a hill, kind of, and you can see anybody who's coming from the highway, but then at one point or another, the dirt road comes out of view, but you can still see all the dust. It's a really dusty road, and then for the last 20 yards or so, you can see who's coming up. It's actually more like a 250 yard long dirt road. Anyway, and so it was kind of a break time, and so, well, yeah, it was lunchtime, and so Dad, there's a big landing out there that works as a parking lot, and so, like I said, you can see who's coming, and my dad sees his car, the Pontiac, and our Grammy's car, Grammy and Grampy's car, because our Grammy is falling behind, so she could take Grampy home after we got me taken care of, or got me to Dad. And so Dad sees both of them coming, and they're both driving like bats out of hell. So like, what's going on? What are they doing here? And then they pull up, and Dakota jumps out of the car. He's like, Dad, I shot Jade. And I don't want to cuss on this channel. I want to make it fairly family friendly, despite the story.
Beep.
Yeah. So Dad's like, what the beep? Anyway, and so he's like, wait, what? Like, completely in shock. He never thought this day would come. He's like, what? And because, like, I shot Jade. I was playing with a gun. I shot Jade. And at this point, Dad kind of thought that he knew it was serious based off of the amount of blood on Dakota. And so he was like, okay. And so Grampy gets out of the car. Dad's like, what happened? And Grampy's like, I don't really know. Dakota shot Jade, but we need to get him to the hospital. And so my dad gets into the car. Dakota gets into the back seat. He starts holding me again, trying to comfort me and all that. And Dad's driving. And then Grampy gets back into their car, and they go back home. And we were driving down the highway, trying to get into Coeur d'Alene, trying to get to like the hospital. And so, and the whole time I'm in and out of consciousness, I can remember hearing Dakota yell, Dad, I shot Jade, and remember hearing Dad yell, what the F. And then I passed out again. And the next thing I know, we were just getting onto the highway again, Highway 3, and driving, and Dakota, I'm like, I have all the adrenaline going, I'm like trying to sit up and trying to get my arm on my eyes. Dad's like, don't let him put his arm on his eyes. And this whole time, Dakota's been like putting my eye in the socket, and it keeps on. This is another part that I kind of feel is a little bit humorous, Dakota was like grabbing my eye and putting it back in the socket, and then he told me down, I'd start thrashing, it'd pop back out onto his arm. He's like, ugh, like kind of like pick it up, put it back in, like, and then I pop right back out. It just kept on, So I kind of found that a little bit amusing too, because it's like we're trying to get me to the hospital because I could die, and then Dakota's just sitting there like, pop, 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 Anyway, and so, that's going on. He's trying to hold me down. I break loose about 5 times, which in normal circumstances would not have happened, because Dakota's like, I don't know, 3 times minimal stronger than me. Probably more like 4 or 5 times, because he hangs sheetrock for a living. Anyway, and so I'm breaking loose and like putting my arm on my eyes, and that was like my only relief. And I was in so much shock that I couldn't actually feel the shot. Like, I couldn't feel my head up there. And so all that I could feel was my eyes. They were ice cold. I needed to warm them up. So like, I'd put my arm on them like that, and that was like my only comfort, because then they'd start warming back up. But then Dakota would grab my arm again, and because at that point I was just causing more damage to myself and all that, and introducing more and more bacteria every time I did that. So anyway, and the exit, you need to understand a little bit of the layout of the land. So there's the exit, the on-ramp and off-ramp onto the freeway, I-90. And I might need to sneeze. Hold on. No. Anyway, and so, uh, about 50 yards before that, or no, more like a 75, 100 yards away from that Rose Lake store, away from the uh, exit to go to Coeur d'Alene, was the Rose Lake store. It was a little gas station, and then about 75, 80 yards down the road from that, farther from the freeway, is Conoco, another gas station. And so we're coming up on those, and Dad's like, Dakota, I know you're gonna hate to hear this, bud, but we're gonna have to pull over. We're gonna have to get gas. Dakota's like, no, we can't get gas. And Dad's like, we're gonna have to. It's either we pull over and get gas, and it'll take about a minute, because the gas tank is on E, or we pass the gas stations and then run out of gas on the freeway, and then we'll really be dead in the water, basically. You know, we'll be screwed. And so Dakota and Dad are kind of both grudgingly, but you know, they know that they have to, so they're like, we have to stop and get gas. So they pull over, and they're filling up, and then right at that second, the ambulance pulls up off of the freeway onto that off ramp and starts driving down the road. So Dakota and Dad sprint out into the middle of the road and flag the ambulance down. They stop. The police are right behind them. They block off the road both ways. And then they get me into the ambulance. And they got me on the gurney strapped down trying to get an IV into my arm to get fluids in me. And bacterial, you know, stuff like that. Sedatives, antibiotics, yes. Antibiotics, sedatives, everything, all that. The whole 9 yards. And so, oh, right. One of the symptoms of shock, correct me if I'm wrong, but shock, when you're in shock, it cuts off blood flow to your extremities, so arms and legs, and just in your heart doesn't really stop, but it kind of goes really slow, and it's just pumping blood to, like, what you need to survive. So, yeah, that's what shock does. And so, your arms get numb, so do your legs, so, like, I was really frantically flailing my arms around because I couldn't feel them. I was thinking, you know, all these horrible thoughts. I can't see anything. I can see light, not really though, but I can see light and like a little bit of shape, but only out of my left eye, basically. And so, like, I'm flailing my arms around. I'm just because like I can't feel anything, and so, like, they have me strapped down on the table, and I'm still breaking loose and putting my arms on my eyes and stuff. And so, I'd lost a lot of blood, plus the blood got cut off to my arms and legs by my own body, you know? So it was even harder for them to get a vein in my arm. And so while this is going on, my dad's like up, like not on my head, but up by my head, and he was like holding my arms down, or at least trying to. But I kept on breaking loose, and so they're like, just don't, you know, you don't have to hold him down, just keep his arms off his eyes. And so, or off his head. And so Dad's like, just pinch my arm, buddy, just pinch my arm, you know. And I was, okay. And so, well, I didn't say okay, but, you know, like, I kept on pinching his arm right there, and every time I'd break through the skin, and I'd feel my fingernails touch again, I'd move to a different spot. And, yeah, it was, by the time I was done, his arm was covered in little blood spots everywhere, because I had pinched through the skin until I drew blood on all of them. That was another part. That was the only, what's the word I'm looking for? Not relaxation, but comfort. That was the only comfort that I could get from, is just the sensation of my fingernails breaking through skin. That was oddly satisfying to me at that time. And so I was like, you know, pinching through the skin and stuff. I was like, okay. And so then they finally get a vein, and then they, you know, I'm like rocking the ambulance back and forth. Everyone around can hear me screaming and everything. Dakota's outside. He can hear me screaming, hear and see the ambulance rocking back and forth. I was testing the shocks on it, everything. And actually, one of Dakota's friends was there. That he had gone to school with a couple years ago, and she was like talking to him and trying to like console him and stuff. Anyway, and so right about that time they get the IV in and then pump me full of the sedative and then I just pass out. And this is another part where I kind of find amusing because my dad's like holding me. I'm like, death struggle, and all of a sudden I'm just, dad's like, did he just die or was that you guys? They're like, oh no, that was us. It's okay. He's not dead yet. Well, I don't think they said dead yet, but he's not dead. That was us. But anyway, and so, yeah, dad's like, okay. And then about 10 minutes later, 10 minutes after they flagged down the ambulance, the life flight helicopter gets there. It flew from Moscow all the way up in 10 minutes. And it lands, and then they put me into the helicopter. And then and they not only sedated me so that like I could be more manageable, but they said that I was making so much of a commotion, like I was moving so much that I probably would have crashed the helicopter had I been awake. So they put me under. They put me into the pilot, or not into the pilot, but the life flight, heart flight, life flight, all that, just same stuff, same names, but different names. Anyway, and then Dad gets into the co-pilot seat, and they take me off to Sacred Heart. They were gonna take me to Harborview, over in Seattle, but Sacred Heart was closer. It's in Spokane, and so they decided to take me to Sacred Heart, and so, the gurney's there waiting. They set down, they get me out, and they get me onto the gurney and straight to the operating room. And my dad's allowed to sit in and watch, just he has to stay in one corner. At one point or another, he comes out of the room, though, and is in the waiting room. Anyway, and so, what was it, like 3 hours, 3 hours of surgery?
Well, don't go into any of the surgery. We'll do that in the next one.
Yeah.
Because I'll get the surgery reports.
Well, yeah, I just want to give them some insight. Right. Like, what, 3 or 4 hours of surgery, though?
It was many, many hours.
Yeah, it was a really long time.
It was many, many hours.
But here's the incredible thing. The number one neurosurgeon, so brain surgeon, that they had in the whole hospital, it was his day off. But for whatever reason, he was there that day. Mm-hmm. Even though it was his day off. He was still there, though. And so, since he was there and the best surgeon they had for brain, they were like, hey, we have a boy who was just shot. He's on his way getting life flighted. Would you do this? He's like, yeah. And then the number one ocular surgeon, so eye surgeon, it was his day off as well. But he was there as well. Mm-hmm. They were both there on their day off for whatever reason and were there to intercept me. And so they get there and they, like Mom said, don't tell too much of the stuff from the surgery, but,
yeah, this is a good spot to sort of wrap it up.
Hold on.
Then we'll get part 3.
Part 2.
This is part 2.
Oh.
You already have 23 plus
how
minute
about this?
videos.
I go until I wake up, okay? And then wake up will be part 3 and on, okay?
No. Because there's so much. There's so much that happens.
No, I'll just tell a little bit of the surgery, like so they had to remove a little bit of most of my right frontal lobe.
Well, no, it was already gone.
Oh, it was gone, but he cleaned up a little bit, which means
and then they had to
cut off
out
some of the
quite a bit of the parietal where there was dead tissue.
I say right now we show the skull a little bit.
Okay, show the skull again.
Okay, so just to well, I mean, you guys can see, so you probably know, but I can't see.
So again, this is just a 3D print version of Jade's skull from the CAT scan.
Here's the left eye socket. Here's the right eye socket. Here's my right ear. Mm-hmm. Left ear. Mm-hmm. That's where the brainstem goes in and out. Mm-hmm. So, let's get the back part. Oh, and also, just to show you guys that this is actually a real life size. Mm-hmm. I did grow a little bit, so you can, if you ever meet me in person and want to feel, I could show you. But as you can see, that plate goes down to there.
So
can
the
feel
plate
it
they
right
put
there.
in, the plate they put in is exact to
It's-
these two
Yeah,
pieces.
and
that
it's
Jade
also
is
basically
putting.
the same stuff. But
Right.
so that's how big of a plate they put in, and for 4 months, 5 months actually, from the initial gunshot, I had that much of my skull missing so that my brain could swell, and then once the 4 months was passed, they put these plates in. And also, as you can see, there's a little bit of an indent. He couldn't get the plate to meet up with my skull right there, so there's a little bit of an indent.
It's
But
not
so,
bad though.
yeah. But so anyway, here's the back piece. Oh. The gunshot removed. This is annoying. Like I said, it's like a puzzle that just doesn't like to stick
he
together.
still has this hole, all these holes.
Dude.
Here, he still has those holes.
Yeah, there's that
As well.
gouge that's not supposed to be there.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, let's, if I can do this time. So, this is starting to get annoying now. So, the shotgun, there was just a little bit, since it was kind of a circular shot pattern though, they just, they cleaned up about that much. So, other than like that much, the shotgun blew out that much of my skull.
Yeah, they cut out the back piece for swelling.
Yeah, they cut this piece out to swell, so that my brain can swell.
and it was also pretty damaged.
Yeah, it was damaged as well.
The tissues and...
We have it in the freezer. I really don't want to, but we could in another video show you my actual skull that still has little pieces of flesh in it, on it. But so yeah, anyway, other than a little bit.
So anyway, stay
up.
tuned.
Yeah.
Come back for part 3, and then we'll talk about the most miraculous
Those are
of the stories so
sinuses.
far.
That's the butterfly track.
The sphenoid. But there was a lot of damage to the
As you
roof
can
of his
see,
mouth. And
It's supposed to be identical, but it's like all shattered up in here. And, oh, and also, that's your temple. It's supposed to be solid. That's basically normal, right?
yeah, your
Yeah,
zygomatics.
it's supposed to be like
That's normal.
On that side. Look at that side. It's just poof.
Yeah, it's all...
So, we'll leave you with that. There's a gouge right there, and I can actually feel it. Yeah, I can. It's right there. So there's that gouge from a BB hit there, and another BB hit there, and another BB hit there. Let's see if I can find any singular holes or anything. No. But yeah, and that's my left eye socket's basically normal, but the right eye socket, as you can see, is just demolished. It's, yeah.
And it's quite amazing that he doesn't look more deformed, because we did not have any plastic surgery done other than putting in the new skull. Otherwise, both surgeons did amazing jobs with what they could work with. So,
Well, hold on here. Actually, I want to see if I can find anything in here in the ears.
in the ears. Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, maybe. There's a hole right there. It's different.
Yep.
So that might be why my right ear rings a lot more than the left. Oh, that's another thing. My ears.
Or it might be why guns don't sound as loud to you as like when you're on video and people are like, wear ear protection, wear eye protection.
I mean, I still need to wear ear protection because it's still really loud. And in that Smith & Wesson M&P 15 video, what I meant by it's not as loud as I thought is exactly what I meant. Like, I thought it would be a little bit louder. It's louder. It was louder and quieter than I expected. So, for the record.
All right. So, ring the bell. Oh, he's going to make his eye pop out. Really? Really? You're going to end with this?
No, I can't. It takes too much focus. But so, yeah. Subscribe, like, share.
And thank God Jade's still alive to tell these stories.
If we do have a comment section, which we'll try to get there, Tell us what you thought and what we should do next, stuff like that. I actually really do like reading through your comments, but like I showed you in the how I use technology video, which we'll be posting soon, it takes a really long time for me to do that because my phone reads everything. So anyway, yeah, hit like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, tell their friends, have their friends tell their friends. If you do go to Mr. Ballin's show or channel, just like, hey, this kid over here, he shouted you out, so yeah, you should shout it, stuff like that. Anyway, yeah, like, share, subscribe, hit the bell so you get notifications. I'll see you in the next one.